one minute you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I was like starstruck one moment. And then the next moment, it's like this real human experience that so many of us have had, like a, terrible car accident or unwanted pregnancies. She talks about, all of that. She had some boyfriends cheat on her. And so I loved how it was just woven so beautifully together. It was almost like, I did this. And then here's this human thing. Let me just throw that in there so you remember I'm human.
Welcome to Amy Liz Harrison's podcast, Eternally Amy, a mum of eight's journey from jail to joy. A Gen Xer who overcame her struggle with alcohol to become a best-selling author and mental health advocate. She shares stories of hope and offers ideas for others struggling with mental health challenges, spirituality, ADHD, or maybe just family, travel, and logistics. One thing is for sure, you'll leave with something to chew on. And now, here's your host, Amy Liz Harrison, with your mystery meat sandwich.
Oh my goodness. Okay, greetings, compadres. Welcome back to another episode of Eternally Amy and another episode of the Boozeless Book Club. So in no particular order, I have Alysse Bryson. She is the CEO and founder of the Sober Curator. She's a vice president at the Intentional Sidekick and fellow 80s superfan. And next I have, it's me, just me. So I actually just have Alysse and me today. And I'm happy with that because sometimes that's how the universe goes. And it's all good. And we're going to just have a great time. And we just want to give love and hearts and shout outs to Carolyn and Sarah, who we are missing today. But here's the deal. Okay, so we read the memoir by Jennifer Gray. It is called Out of the Corner. So if you have seen Dirty Dancing, which hopefully you have, you will know that there's a famous line in that movie towards the end where Patrick Swayze, aka Johnny Castle, comes up to Baby or Jennifer Gray and says, nobody puts Baby in the corner. Boom. So that's where that comes from. And I want to start out by saying, first of all, Alysse, thanks for being here. Shout out. I love you. Thank you so much.
I love being here. And obviously I miss Carolyn and Sarah, but I do know that you and I have enough personality to make up for it. So we're going to be fine. I'm only sorry that I wasn't organized enough to dress up like a Dirty Dancing theme today. If I had been a little bit more organized, I live a reason for an outfit.
I know you do. And here's the thing. So I didn't know what to do with my hair because I knew we were coming on here to talk about, and I was like,
I appreciate the side pony. I see what you're doing. I know it. I picked up on it right away.
Good. Okay, that's as close as I could get. And the problem is that kind of like one of the costumes, one of the main things for Dirty Dancing is like the cutoff shorts. And I can't really do that on the podcast. I mean, I wouldn't really want to anyway, nor would you want me to. But I do, you're not going to be able to see it because otherwise I'm really sticking my boobs in the computer camera. But I want to show you, maybe I'll just put it up here, and I have a tank top on underneath.
Oh, yeah, you're a little tied knot, on the shirt. Okay, you did.
So I tried, I gave it a whirl, I gave it a college try. What can I say to try?
Plus, your top is kind of a watermelon color, and remember that part in Dirty Dancing where he's like juggling the watermelons?
Yes, which is why I wore this color shirt.
I knew it. I knew it.
I was getting there, so I love that you picked up on it. Of course you did. Why am I surprised? I don't know why I'm surprised. Good for you, and thank you for noticing. First of all, I want to know, I'm going to tell you when I saw Dirty Dancing, okay? So when I very first saw Dirty Dancing, actually, this is crazy. But I'm going to tell you about when I didn't see Dirty Dancing because I was supposed to see it. And then I was cock blocked by my mom. So what happened was I was at my friend Lori's birthday party, and her last name will remain nameless to protect her identity, but she had a birthday party where the mom said, hey, we're going to have the girls over. We're going to have Domino's Pizza, of course. We're going to have Crystal Pepsi, and we're going to watch Dirty Dancing. So I got to do all of that fun stuff except for the movie because my mom came and picked me up in the station wagon because it was an inappropriate movie for me to see. So that was a bummer, but we have since talked about this many times and joked about it, and I've let it go. What can I say? And but that was like my first memory. Whenever I think of Dirty Dancing, that's immediately what I associate it with. Is like, oh my gosh, yes, I never saw it when all my friends were seeing it because my mom wouldn't let me. And then when I did finally see it, it was absolutely worth the wait. And here's the thing. I've probably seen it, I don't know, probably in the neighborhood of 50 times. So I made up for lost time is my point.
Well, and this is just one of the many things you and I have in common. Now, I can't say I saw it at a birthday party or I didn't see it because my mom picked me up too soon, but I was not allowed to watch this movie. I was actually not allowed to watch any movie that was rated PG-13 or above. And definitely nothing rated R. I don't remember what Dirty Dancing is rating, but it was on the do not fly list, right? I wasn't allowed to watch MTV. I wasn't allowed to have a Barbie. Like there were just a lot of things that were not allowed in our household. But I was over at a friend's house when I saw Dirty Dancing. And ironically, her dad was the youth pastor of the church that we went to. I'm
raising my eyebrows.
Dun, 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 drama. So I'm not sure how we got to watch it, but I do remember it was at her house in her basement. We were, I think, I was in the 7th grade. She was in the 8th grade, or I was in the 6th grade. She was in the 7th grade. It was something like that. And I was at her house for the weekend. And I know that we just watched it over and over and over again. And obviously we had to take breaks because we had to rewind because it was a VHS tape, obviously. It's a VHS tape.
Totally.
But that was also the first house. That was a house I was able to watch MTV at. I can remember watching my first Bon Jovi music video there. I actually thought the song "You Give Love a Bad Name," up until I saw that music video, I really thought it was "You Give Love a Band-Aid," because I didn't hear the lyrics correctly.
Sidebar: this was a problem for those of us who are Generation X. We had no way of looking up the real lyrics. We didn't have Google, we didn't have Shazam, none of that. So I've talked about this before, but that was like a real problem. Like carry a laser gun down this road that I must travel by Mr. Kyrie. I thought that that's what the lyric was. Carry a laser gun.
Oh, yeah. I thought, the song "Be Sedated." I want to be sedated.
Yeah.
I thought it was "I want a piece of David." And I was like, who is David? And why do we want a piece of him?
Dude, we had it rough. What can I say?
Rough.
I mean, right?
Rougher than our parents who had to walk to school uphill both ways in the snow.
No shoes, no pants.
We were kids that lived before computers.
Yeah.
So, granted, not totally before computers, because I had an Atari at a certain point. You had an Atari at a certain point. Yep. But really.
No, we did. And in fact, this is so interesting because I was talking to my husband. Actually, we periodically discuss this about, the whole concept of like, if you were going to meet your buddy at the mall, at Orange Julius or at Cinnabon, and your mom dropped you off and you walk in there and then you can't find your friend. Like maybe your friend thought you were meeting in front of JCPenney. Like maybe your friend was late. Like, how did you contact them? What did you do? Like, what was the plan B? So we had to develop like these survival skills, I would say. And it's funny because trying to think back to like, what were my thought patterns in that circumstance? I guess it didn't happen often enough to like scar me for life.
Mm.
But also B, I mean, it's really interesting because I must have just figured it out. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
either I like called my mom from a payphone and said, when she got home, of course, I'd have to wait till then. So I'd have to give it some buffer time because she didn't have a cell phone because they didn't exist. Or, so maybe call her up or maybe call the friend's house to get the scoop from their mom. I don't know what we did, but I never sat around and wondered, like, did Stephanie die? Like, that didn't cross my mind. It was like, I never thought maybe she was in a ditch somewhere, which is probably good.
Mhm. As you were talking, and as soon as you said J.C. Penney's, and the mall, I immediately pictured the mall that was by my house growing up, which had a J.C. Penney's. Now, this was a very small mall. You could stand at one end and you could see the other end, right? It had J.C. Penney's on one end and Sears at the other end. Um,
Sears.
and
Yes.
there was a not Victoria's Secret. What was it called?
Fredericks of Hollywood.
Not Fredericks of Hollywood. Oh, it'll come to me in a minute. But there was a Maurice's. There was obviously a frozen yogurt place. There was
Earl
a video
Norman.
arcade. There were just all these things. But when you were talking about JCPenney, I immediately started thinking of the clothing line Seattle Blues. Did you have any Seattle Blues? I know you grew up in California. So here we had, it was denim and it was Seattle Blues. And I just remember, and this is about the same age I was when I watched Dirty Dancing for the first time, just so we can bring this back full circle so everyone can remember what we're talking about today, which
Thank
is
you, including me.
Jennifer Gray's memoir and not any of the things we're talking about so far. But I had this turquoise denim jacket and turquoise blue denim jeans. I mean, we're talking like almost neon electric. And I remember that is what I wore for my 6th or 7th grade picture. I can't remember. And I just remember feeling so cool in my Seattle blue jean outfit.
Well, you were.
With a banana clip, you know?
Well, of course, I would expect nothing less. And so you're in the teal blue. I like to call that the Canadian tuxedo, like jean on jean.
Basically, yep, jean on jean. Mhm.
Yeah. And I need to know just one thing before like we bring it back to actually talk about the book. But was Seattle Blues located next to a Miller's Outpost?
I mean, probably.
Yeah. Or Wet Seal?
Wet Seal. Mm-hmm.
Just wondering. Just had to ask.
J. Jacobs. That was the name. J. Jacobs.
Yeah, I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
I do remember that. Yep.
And it's interesting because all these clothing is kind of come back. Well, we've seen all the trends come back again and again and again, but the sweater dresses, the baby doll dresses, the Doc Martens, all of it.
So weird. It is so weird. And I'm actually kind of sad I got rid of some of that because it would be legit vintage if I still had it. And I ain't got it. I have 10 million other things, but I don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So here's the deal. Okay. So back to this book. I'm going to tell you this. I did not expect to love it as much as I did. And I think that it's like, when you love a book or you love a movie and the sequel comes out, you've already kind of set your expectations at like mezzo soprano level. It's not that you're trying to be like, approaching it from a dissatisfied position, but it's just that you've seen so many sequels that maybe you just have a little bit of contempt prior to investigation, just a dash. That's kind of how I usually am with like people's memoirs that, I have like in my brain that these people are fantastically incredible and amazing. And I'm like, but are they authors? I don't know. I don't know. What's an author anyways? Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. I loved this book so much. And for whatever I thought of Jennifer Grey before, which was a lot, I thought she was amazing in Dirty Dancing. And I think she's an amazing person. Like this was my experience prior to reading it. And now it's just like that's amplified. I was impressed with her descriptive writing. She had a weird way of like hooking the reader in where you were like, oh my God, what happens next? Oh my God, what happens next? What happens next? Like this constant like drive inside of me. Like I couldn't put it down. And I was really surprised by that and pleasantly so. And I just have such a respect and an admiration for her. And so like she starts out, right, by talking about her plastic surgery, which I
Mhm.
love because there's something about just like get the elephant in the room on the table, right? Just like
Mhm.
put it out immediately. And I loved that. And I loved the way she talked about, um, that she looked a little bit too Jewish. And there was this career advice that was given to her that was basically like, if you got a nose job, right, it might kind of help you get some more gigs or whatever. And so she does. And then she gets like a fix it job for the first nose job because the first nose job didn't go well. And then she basically calls that like her career killer. Like that was that. And then, she talks about like being at the airline in front of a gate agent and the person didn't recognize her and was like basically telling her, well, you're not Jennifer Grey. And was not understanding that she was who she said she was.
Mhm.
And just how that must have felt, like, I don't know. I just thought that was,
Well, and and let's also remember that she was the sister in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Like I want to make sure we
of
nod to
course.
that because it's not like Dirty Dancing was the only
That
movie
is
she
true. I
was
didn't
known
see that.
for, right? But I
That's
mean, it's the go-to. But it's also, she was ahead of her time in the plastic surgery. Like now it is so commonplace and there's, everybody has a little something done. So it was so much more common back then it was very controversial what she
yeah.
did, and yes, it did very much change her appearance. So I had it on Audible, and I love Audible because you can feel like you're still reading books, but you can do it with your ears, and do it while you're cleaning the house or driving or whatnot. And Jamie Lee Curtis, who we know and we love as
Yeah.
being one of our sober peeps, her quote about the book: Jennifer Grey peels back all of the artifice, denial, obfuscation, and a myriad of assumptions, and exposes a gorgeous human portrayal of her life.
Oh,
And which I just thought was a great quote. And I think,
so lovely.
good on Jennifer for writing this book, for writing her memoir and putting her story out there.
Yeah, totally. And, yeah, I love a little JLC as well. Just what a stellar lady. And here's what else I didn't know about Jennifer. I had no idea she was sober. I had no idea, like, I didn't know. I didn't know she was a, 12-step member. She talks about that in the book and
Mm-hmm.
very open about that and how kind of the catalyst for that was a series of, events that often precede somebody hitting rock bottom. And she was really open and candid about what those events were. And I just really admired that. You could see the arc really well. Those of us, who are in recovery and we know these stories, you could kind of see where it was heading. And I appreciated her candor and I appreciated that she, talked about what happened, what it was like, and then what happened, and then what it's like today. And you could see uh the trajectory, the whole journey of like how she used to deal with problems versus how she deals with them now. And I loved that. I thought, that was an incredibly lovely thing to read. And again, I was surprised.
I
But
was
then I
surprised
thought,
too. I mean, and here I think, I mean, I'm the sober curator, right? I'm supposed to like curate all of the sober things into one place. And I would like to think that I know all the sober celebrities, but I had no idea until I got into the book. I was like, what?
yeah,
So,
shocking left turn.
mhm.
I know. And the other thing I love too is like, of course, I was totally starstruck about all of the, celebrities that she met and got to work with or, rub elbows with or whatever the saying is. But, she just had all these cool experiences that I loved. If you're like a pop culture junkie from the 80s and 90s, and I'll speak for Alysse and myself, which we are, um,
Mhm.
it's just really fun to read about all that. I knew that she and Matthew Broderick had dated. I knew that, whole thing had happened after Ferris Bueller's Day Off, or kind of in the middle of the taping, I guess, really. But I loved how she met John Hughes, and she talks all about what she thought about John Hughes, and how creative he was and how brilliant. And I loved, she really unpacks when she was in Ireland with Matthew Broderick, and they got in that terrible car accident. And these are like the stories, 1 minute you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I was like starstruck one moment. And then the next moment, it's like this real human experience that so many of us have had, like a, terrible car accident or unwanted pregnancies. She talks about, all of that. She had some boyfriends cheat on her. And so I loved how it was just woven so beautifully together. It was almost like, hey, yes, I'm this star. She wasn't like bloaty about it, like kind of, or braggy about it, but she was like, I did this. And then here's this human thing. Let me just throw that in there so you remember I'm human. And I thought that was just a cool thing that she was doing throughout the book, which I really admired.
So I have to ask you, if you had to recommend either her book or, just a couple of months ago, we read Matthew Perry's memoir. Which one of the two do you think was better?
Like,
I know that they're very different, but if you had to say, if you had to recommend only one of the two, because somebody was on a budget and could only afford to get one book, which one would it be?
Okay, this is just little old Amy sitting from my little space in the world. I related more to Jennifer Gray's, and so I would pick hers. She talked about, when she was talking about her interview with Johnny Carson, being on the Johnny Carson show, and she was talking about, how nervous she was and what she did to kind of prepare to even be interviewed to be a candidate to be on the Johnny Carson show, and how, she had all of those mental spins going on, like, am I good enough? All the self-doubt, all of the, am I ever going to be as polished, a person as he would want on there, and just what she did to try and talk herself into that. And I mean, it was just so real. And I loved reading that, because I just felt like, she was a girlfriend, like she's one of my girly girls. And so that just sucked me in. So, but Matthews, of course, was wonderful.
Oh
But
no, we like Matthews. There's nothing against Matthew.
we love him.
Yep.
We love him. So I wrote down a couple of other things here that I loved. P.S. Okay, yes. She has, and talks about this toward the very end, she talks about ADHD. Boom. She was diagnosed with ADHD later in life, which was a surprise, another surprise. I had no idea like that was coming, but she did kind of give like a foreshadowing, like at the beginning of the book. She talked about, like, maybe somewhere within the first 5 chapters, 6 chapters, maybe, her brother was put on Ritalin. And all of a sudden that kind of went like ding, ding in my mind, because I know that, the hereditary elements and all the genetic elements, not hereditary. I thought, oh, geez, and then, she talks about how because he was a boy, nobody ever kind of paid much attention to her learning challenges. And so because he was a boy, it was really showcased and focused on and dealt with. And I just was like, yeah, girl, I get it. Like, been there kind of thing. The whole thing, by the way, with Patrick Swayze, like, can we just talk about that? It was like, yeah, first she's in Red Dawn with him, and, he had some antics, some shenanigans that he pulled on her during the filming of that movie. And so she unpacks that and really talks about how, those incidents kind of left her with kind of a negative view of him, we shall say. And then later, when she finds out, because she was cast first in the role of Baby in Dirty Dancing, they didn't have Johnny Castle yet. And so when she found out that he was like one of the only people that they were looking at when they, got to that point. She was just like, are you friggin' serious? Him, And she just had that real, just hair standing on the back of your neck type experience hearing that news, and just how she dealt with that throughout the movie, the filming of the movie. And what she thinks now, which is that she wishes he were alive, so that she could basically tell him, hey, Patrick, like I was young, I was like scared, I had my own ideas of how I thought that this should go, and I was like not wanting it to be with you. She had a big problem, with his lack of time management. He'd show up to everything late during the filming of Dirty Dancing. It really bothered her. And so, like, she says now, like, what's the big deal? Okay, so he was late. Like, but I made it my problem. I made it like affect me, and just how we do that as humans. We have a tendency to, think that, we're the victims or whatever. But I just thought that was really lovely, the way she was totally balls to the wall honest about the situation and how it was, but also came back around and just wished that he were alive today so she could kind of share what she had learned.
That was super interesting. I always struggled a little bit with Patrick Swayze. I don't know that I was ever team Patrick. I don't know that I was.
Why is that, do you think?
I don't know.
He was definitely like, look, I'm going to just admit it. I was a hair judgmental when I read some of the details of some of the things in her book, like some of the things that he said to her, some of the things that he pulled on the set of Dirty Dancing, not on Red Dawn.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, dang, I think he was married then. So I was trying to like, go back and like figure that out, like some kind of old lady clutching my pearls. Like I was like, oh, I think you're married. What are you doing, Sonny? But I just was kind of like, oh, that's a bummer, but whatever. Who knows? Who knows how it actually happened or what happened? And people are people. But I could see that. Sidebar question. You've seen Roadhouse, I assume, right?
I have. That was another one I was not allowed to watch, though, to be clear.
That was on the list.
Yeah, it was on the list. So that was one I saw later on. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so Roadhouse, here, I just have to share this, is a movie that I have partially seen about 7,000 times. Because every time I turn on like a hotel room TV or it's like a Sunday afternoon and I like just flip it on and I always find Roadhouse. It's the weirdest thing. It's
weird.
Like, I know, it's always on. It's so strange. I'm like, why do they replay this all the time? But I'll tell you what movie I did really like was To Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Love Julie Newbar. And that is where Patrick Swayze was dressed in drag for the movie. Remember that one? Long time ago.
Right. Whoa, yeah.
Well, just had to throw that in there. So yeah, so she got to work with Nicolas Cage. Oh, and then we can't forget to touch on the fact that she was engaged to Johnny Depp. What? Like 1989.
Oh, right. That was way back. That was way back.
Way back. And she said when she was talking, I think she was on GMA after, at the release of this book, basically. She was giving an interview and she said, well, the 1989 version of Johnny Depp was like awesome. Like she said she totally used him as like a rebound relationship. And it worked, is what she said. It totally worked. Like he took away all the pain.
Well, he was the quintessential bad boy, right? Before he became known as a drunken pirate, he was definitely the quintessential bad boy.
Yep, he was. And see, I never knew this whole connection. Like, so she was she talks about this in the book. She was neighbors with Winona Ryder. And so then she was kind of like, okay, so then my like fiance is like starting to screw my neighbor. And what so I really was like enamored by some of that stuff. It was like I just never, it was so interesting hearing the context between how some of those things all happened. And
it is really interesting how incestuous Hollywood is. Like, remember months back when we were reading Selma Blair's memoir, and how she was like besties with Carrie Fisher, like so much so that she even like had one of her weddings in her backyard. Well, speaking of Winona Ryder, can we do a little shout out to Girl Interrupted? Because that's a movie that I have seen many times.
Loved Girl Interrupted. I haven't seen it in many moons, but I loved it. Yeah.
I feel like I saw it in sometime in the last couple of years, and I feel like that's one that has held on.
As has Beetlejuice. A far less meaningful movie, but yet still good.
Beetlejuice.
But the other thing that I just wanted to quickly bring up that I loved so much was all of her discussion about when she got her hair done by this one guy. And this is, back in the day before Dirty Dancing, prior to acting, really. And she got her hair done by this guy. And then they ended up dating. He was a hairdresser. And every night they'd go to Studio 54, and it would take them forever to get ready before they went out for the night. And then, get back at like in the wee hours of the morning. And she's just walking down the street in New York, like, with her shoes off, and just on the cold cement, and how it was such a healing balm for her feet and all of that. And I'm like, man, I mean, I don't know, seemed like a wild time to be a part of Studio 54. And like, it
absolutely
just seemed kind of crazy. But yeah, I would just, honestly, if this were me, I would give this a 10 plus out of 10. If I was, on the Siskel and Ebert, like rating scale, I loved it. And I loved it for all of those reasons. I loved that she is clearly so comfortable in her own skin now that she can go back and point out all these times when she wasn't. And I think that shows, health and growth. And I thought it was beautiful.
That's probably the best takeaway of the book is from, it seems like she's someone who is finally at peace and comfortable in her own skin.
Comfortable in her own skin, and also her cut off shorts. And I'd be remiss if I didn't wrap this up by mentioning the lift in Dirty Dancing. And I thought that was so interesting, the way, like, she didn't want to practice that lift. And of course, I'm talking about the scene in the lake where Patrick lifts her up. And, it's kind of a standard ballet move for ballet male dancers, to lift up their partners like that. And she was terrified of doing that lift. She was legitimately terrified. And so that was interesting because, she was also in the film scared of doing the lift, And so, just to kind of wrap it up, I loved the human aspect of it so much of the book. I loved it. I thought she did such a good job on it. And also, these things happen, right? Where like the universe just kind of ties these things together. And so in my own personal life, my next book that I'm writing that's in my Eternally series is called Eternally Evolving, and it has a Dirty Dancing theme to it, parallels with Dirty Dancing a little bit, and so a lot. And so, it's just funny, like how these things just sort of unfold, is that the timing was such that I was like, see, I knew this was, this fits just great, because it's like, that's how I am, right? Like, was so uncomfortable in my own skin, scared of everything, still scared of everything, do it scared and awkwardly, and that's okay. You know what I mean? Like, just that whole parallel I thought was cool. Any other thoughts before I wrap us up with the bailout bag?
No, I just all this talk nostalgically. I just kind of feel like we should hit the roller skating rink or something after this. I don't know. That's
Dude, I think I still might have my Wonder Woman briefs that I'd put over my like stretch pants. I mean, so I don't know that they will fit around my hips anymore, but I'm all in for roller skating. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to hurt myself though, so there's always that.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I have not roller skated in a really long time. I'm not sure how good I would be.
Because there's no skate king anymore here.
I know.
Seattle area makes me mad, and I don't even have connections to it from when I was a kid. But I loved that place, even though it stunk really bad. But
Right, yeah, they did. The one in my town was called the Roller Drome, and it is actually still there. It has been updated over the years, but they had these. I will never forget. They had these. They look like mushrooms. They were round and covered in carpet, and that were like round. They were like couches, but they were round and they were covered in carpet. So that's why they look like mushrooms. And you would just roller skate and just kind of collapse onto them.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah,
like,
they were disgusting. Like
Yeah.
disgusting.
Never cleaned. Like they were
No,
never
gross.
like shampooed.
No.
No,
Mm.
totally.
We didn't. I don't know that we really cared about germs in the 80s. I'm not sure that was a high priority.
Yeah, it definitely was not for me. I can tell you that much. I'm like shocked that we're still alive and we like ate all those chemicals, drank like Sunny D and like really severely like our quote fruit juice was actually like, like 2% actual juice. I mean, and we're reasonably sane and reasonably healthy, and I feel grateful. I don't know what to say. I mean,
Mhm.
right? So I hate that this is over, Alysse, for the bailout bag, because most of all, I am scared of walking out of this room and never feeling again in my whole life the way I feel when I'm with you.
Ah, you're hilarious.
I love you. That's a line from the movie, if you don't know. But anyway, thank you, Jennifer Gray, for writing such a lovely memoir. Alysse, thank you so much for being here. Love you to death. P.S. Random sidebar. Alysse, another thing I didn't mention at the beginning, she's a fantastic roommate. Just saying. We went to a conference together in Vegas in November, and it was
so much
so
fun.
fun that
We had a
I'm
blast.
still reliving it.
Had a
Like
blast.
it hasn't lost its shine, So anyway,
I gotta ask, what are we reading next, Amy? Do we know what we're reading next?
I'm almost positive. So I'm going to say like with 99% surety. And there's always that factor, what if something happens? What if someone gets hit by a bus? What if the world ends, right? It is by Jordan Barnes, and it is called One Hit Away. And it is a recovery memoir. Fun fact, Alysse and I met Jordan Barnes in Vegas at the authors conference. And so
I'm thrilled that that's the next book. I am
that's
so
the
on
next
board.
book. And he is a lovely person, just a nice guy. And yeah, I was just thrilled to meet him. And he's got, a family and just a cool dude. So I am so excited that that's our next book. And thank you so much for reminding me to bring it up. And on that note, be kind, rewind. Thank you for the honor of your time. Take what you like and leave the rest behind.
Thank you so much for listening to Eternally Amy. Amy Liz Harrison is a best-selling author, speaker, 12-step coach, meditation teacher, and recovery advocate. To find out more, please visit amylizharrison.com. Keep up with Amy on all platforms by following @AmyLizHarrison. Please subscribe and review this podcast. It means so much to us if you do.